The social learning theory was created by Albert Bandura, presented by Team Fresh. Albert Bandura was born December 4th, 1925, in Bandura, Canada. Out of six children in his family, he was the only boy. He went to elementary and high school in Bandura, where the schools were short-staffed. Because of this, Bandura had to do a lot of learning by himself. After graduating high school, Albert attended the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada. Originally, Bandura intended to major in one of the biological sciences, but after taking a psychology class as an elective, Bandura decided to pursue a major in psychology. In 1949, Albert Bandura graduated from the University of British Columbia with the Bolokin Award in psychology. From there, he went to the University of Iowa for his graduate study. In 1951, he received his master's, and in 1952, he became Dr. Bandura, getting his Ph.D. in clinical psychology from the University of Iowa. Bandura had a postdoctoral internship at the Wichita Guidance Center. Albert married his wife Virginia in 1952, and they had two kids, Mary in 1954 and Carol in 1958. In 1953, Bandura joined the faculty at Stanford.
Albert Bandura is best known for his social learning theory, or more recently renamed to the social cognitive theory. His theory states that behavior is learned from the environment through observational learning. This theory is based on a modeling process at which the child goes through each step. The first step is attention. Bandura states that in order to learn anything, you must pay attention to the modeled behavior. Characteristics of the observer and the person being observed may contribute to the amount of attention given. The second step is retention. Those observing have to be able to remember the activities that were modeled. Imagery and language aid this process of retention. In order to be able to recall the actions later, the human mind stores what was observed in mental images and verbal descriptions. Reproduction is the third step in his theory. The images and descriptions created in the retention step, or step 2, are now used to convert into actions. Bandura's last step in his modeling process is motivation. If the observer has a reason or factor to reenact these actions, the mind will come up with incentives, which lead to positive reinforcement. Negative reinforcement, though, will lead to the discontinuation of the observed activities. This photo is an example of his theory. As you can see, this little boy is copying his father's actions using the steps in the social cognitive theory. Another example of this is this photo of a mother and daughter. The daughter is mimicking her mom, putting on makeup. Lastly, these two boys are demonstrating Bandura's theory. Albert Bandura believes that we are able to control our behavior through self-regulation.
According to Albert Bandura, people with high assurance in their capabilities approach difficult tasks as challenges to be mastered rather than as threats to be avoided. Albert Bandura's social learning theory added a social element, arguing that people can learn new information and behaviors by watching other people. His observational learning theory has three models. The first is a live model, which is an actual individual demonstrating or acting out behavior. The second is a verbal instructional model, which involves descriptions and explanations of behavior. The third model is a symbolic model, which involves real or fictional characters' behaviors in books or television. Bandura noted that external environmental reinforcement was not the only factor to influence learning and behavior. He described intrinsic reinforcement as a form of internal reward, pride, satisfaction, and a sense of accomplishment. The importance on internal thoughts and cognitions helps connect learning theories to cognitive developmental theories. Not all observed behaviors are effectively learned. Factors involving both the model and the learner can play a role in whether social learning is successful. There are certain requirements and steps that must also be followed. The steps that are involved in the modeling process are attention, retention, reproduction, and motivation. Attention includes the need to be paying attention. Retention is storing information, reproduction is performing the behavior you observed, and motivation is imitating the behavior that has been modeled. Bandura's social learning theory has had effects in the field of education. Today, both teachers and parents recognize the importance of modeling appropriate behaviors. Other classroom strategies, such as encouraging children and building self-efficacy, are also rooted in social learning theory.
A famous experiment that proves this theory is the Bobo doll experiment. Bandura believed that aggression can be explained in three aspects. The first aspect is how aggressive patterns of behavior are developed. The second is what provokes people to behave aggressively. The third is what determines whether they are going to continue to resort to an aggressive behavior on future occasions. In this experiment, 36 boys and girls from the Stanford University Nursery School were tested. The ages ranged from 3 to 6, and there was also a male and female model that led the groups. Bandura arranged 24 boys and girls to watch the model behave aggressively toward an object called a Bobo doll. 24 boys and girls were exposed to a non-aggressive model, and the last 24 was the control group and received no treatment at all. Bandura also grouped the kids on a level of aggression so that the group members had the same level of aggression. The results of the experiment were that when children are exposed to the violent model, they tended to imitate the exact behavior they had observed when the adult was no longer present. Children who were exposed to a non-aggressive model manual showed less aggression. They also found that boys who observed an adult male behaving violently were more influenced than those who had observed a female model behaved more aggressively. Finally, the researchers came to the conclusion that boys showed more aggression than girls. Like every experiment, there were criticisms. Many people questioned whether or not this experiment was ethical or not. People questioned it because this experiment could have had long-term effects and also could make the subjects more aggressive or violent. There was no data to prove this claim, though. In modern society, Albert Bandura believes television and video games is the main source of behavior modeling. In these scenarios, violence is often acceptable in the society and the hero is rarely punished for his violent acts. Video games such as Call of Duty, Halo, and Battlefront reward violence to pass the level. Television and movies such as Tom and Jerry, The Avengers, and Batman contains numerous acts of violence.
Long-term effects of the study did not produce aggressive behavior with every participant due to the type of reaction that the parents portrayed out of the study. The child's violent behavior is merely a temporary modeling action, but should not be considered a permanent behavior. The reaction that the parent or guardian has, either positive or negative, will determine if the child will keep or lose the modeling that was created through the theory. This interaction between the child and the guardian roles happen every day that teach children what is considered or not considered acceptable in society. A positive reinforcement of the parent will increase the chance of the behavior reoccurring. Positive reinforcement is apparent in adult life with paying for others for services, or in treating animals on the job well done, pictured here. Negative punishment from the parent will decrease the child's behavior from reoccurring. If the child portrayed violent behavior outside the study, then punishment can be used to reinforce societal expectations on behavior. Once again, this behavior is apparent in training animals. The picture shown is a confrontation of the puppy that has yet to learn potty training. The impact of Bandura's Bobo doll experiment will depend on each child that participated in the study. If the modeling that the children replicated had a small impact on them, then there would be no lasting behavior. Now, if the study did have a big impact on the child's behavior, and the child was showing aggressive behavior outside the study, then reinforcement should be used to help the child learn when their aggressive behavior is allowed.
The social learning theory has been applied to the understanding of aggression as well as psychological disorders, especially when it comes to behavioral modification. This theory is the foundation for a behavioral modeling technique that is commonly used in training programs. Television commercials are the most common example of the social learning theory. This theory can also be applied to business. By modeling to your employees what you want from them, they are more likely to